It started with a metal detector in a cold, damp European forest. The kind of quiet weekend hobby search most people do, hoping to find old silver coins or lost Victorian jewelry. The air is thick with the smell of wet pine needles and rotting leaves. But sometimes when the coil swings over a patch of undisturbed earth, you find something else. A sharp, high-pitched tone cuts through the silence. You drop to your knees, digging through decades of heavy black mud and tangled roots. And you pull out something that waited a century in the dark to tell its story. This is a heavy brass rifle cartridge, fired in 1917. And this is the story of what soldiers, trapped in the nightmare of the trenches, did with these empty shells when the heavy artillery finally fell silent. The tradition didn't start in factories. It started in places like the Battle of Verdun and the Somme. Imagine being a French or British soldier in the bitter freezing winter of 1916. You are sitting in knee-deep, icy mud for months on end. The smell of cordite, damp wool, and death is everywhere. There is nothing to do but wait, listen to the distant thunder of the guns, and try desperately to stay sane. In that terrifying boredom, someone picked up a spent brass casing. Maybe it was his own. Maybe it ejected from the bolt-action rifle of the man standing next to him. And instead of tossing it into the flooded trench floor to be buried with the thousands of others, he kept it. He started working it, using nothing but a standard-issue pocket knife and a metal file stolen from the company armory. Hours of careful, repetitive cutting and shaping by the flickering light of a candle in a damp subterranean dugout. The result was a lighter. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't factory perfect, but it was his. Something he made with his own two hands. Something that proved he was still a human being, a creator, in a place specifically designed to destroy humanity. They called it trench art, and by 1917, every army on the bleeding edge of the Western Front was doing it. British Tommies, American doughboys, German infantrymen, all of them taking the exact same spent ammunition, the debris of death, and turning it into something other than war. Lighters were the most common and the most prized. They were practical. You needed fire to survive. Cigarettes kept the panic down and the cold away. A working lighter, machined from your own fired rifle casing, meant something profound. It meant you survived the moment that bullet was fired. It meant you had the luxury of time to make something. It meant you were still thinking about a future where you would need a lighter. This particular casing is a heavy caliber from a 1917 rifle. Likely a British .303 or an American .30-06. It is hard to tell at first glance after a century buried in acidic dirt, but the base, the head stamp, is still there. Partially visible beneath the crust, just enough to date it, just enough to know for a fact it was fired during the Great War. The patina tells you the rest of the story. This casing sat untouched under a European forest floor for over 100 years. Probably France, maybe Belgium. Somewhere along the scarred Western Front, where millions of rounds were fired in anger and millions of brass casings ended up trampled into the mud. Most of them are still there, slowly dissolving into the earth. But this one came up. Finding it is one thing. Understanding what it could become is another. That's where the history truly matters, because soldiers didn't just make these lighters randomly. They followed incredibly clever, improvised engineering patterns. Techniques and blueprints passed from man to man, whispered in the trenches. Cut the neck here, file the edge there, drill out the spent primer pocket to create a hidden access point for the fuel. Make a snuffer cap from whatever scrap copper you can find, usually the jacket of an unfired bullet. Scavenge a tiny flint and a striker wheel from a broken civilian lighter sent from home. Build a wick by tearing strips from your own cotton undershirt. Every trench lighter followed roughly the same ingenious design because it worked flawlessly in terrible conditions. And that century-old design still works today. The restoration doesn't start with hammers, it starts with chemistry. This casing is buried in a thick, aggressive green, verdigris patina. Copper oxidation that built up microscopic layer by microscopic layer over decades in the wet forest soil. It has to come off so we can see the integrity of the metal underneath. But you don't just scrub it away and ruin the brass, you dissolve it. A mild, warm acid solution is prepared. The casing is submerged. You let chemistry do what chemistry does. The acid bubbles and fizzes. The thick green crust slowly dissolves into the murky liquid, and the original brass emerges. It is dull. It is heavily pitted by time, but it is solid brass. Then the real mechanical work starts. The empty casing needs to become a functioning lighter. That means cutting, filing, precision drilling. The original soldiers did this with crude hand tools and endless patience. We have modern lathes and power tools, but the underlying technique is exactly the same. The primer pocket at the base gets drilled out to create a sealed fuel reservoir. The hollow body of the casing is absolutely perfect for holding liquid naphtha lighter fluid. A small, thin brass tube goes inside as a central fuel feed. A braided cotton wick threads through that tiny tube. It relies on pure capillary action to pull the liquid fuel up to the exposed wick. It is pure physics that soldiers understood perfectly, even if they didn't know the scientific words for it. The ignition system is wonderfully simple but requires precision, a hardened steel striker wheel. A small piece of sparking flint, a tension spring. When you spin the sharp, knurled wheel against the flint, a shower of hot sparks happens. If those sparks land on a fuel-soaked cotton wick, fire happens. 1917 soldiers scavenge these tiny parts from broken items. We machine our own from high-carbon steel and raw brass rod, but the mechanical function is identical. The final critical piece is the snuffer cap. You need a reliable way to put the flame out without blowing on it. A heavy wind in a frontline trench would just blow the glowing embers back to life. So you need a tight-fitting cap that drops heavily over the flame and instantly starves it of oxygen. Soldiers made these from whatever they could scavenge. Scraps of brass, shell fragments, or copper bullet jackets. Anything that could be hammered over a form into a small, perfect dome. This one is made from a recovered copper bullet jacket. Not from 1917, but from the exact same area. The same war, the same mud. It is cut to size, carefully formed into a smooth dome, and hinged to the main casing with a tiny, hand-peened brass pin. It opens smoothly. It closes with a satisfying mechanical snap. It snuffs the flame, exactly like the originals. Then comes the final visual transformation. Raw, oxidized brass looks authentic, sure, but highly polished brass looks intentional. It looks cared for. This lighter gets polished to a flawless mirror finish on a high-speed buffing wheel. Every single surface, the brass casing, the copper cap, the steel striker assembly. We use progressively finer abrasive compounds until the century-old brass reflects the workshop lights like solid glass. This is where you truly see the craftsmanship, not just in the mechanical function. The function is simple, but in the finish. In the act of taking something that was manufactured by the millions specifically to kill and transforming it into something that creates light. That's what the soldiers were really doing. They weren't just making lighters to smoke. They were reclaiming a piece of their humanity, taking the cold machinery of industrial war and forcing it to become a tool of normal, everyday life. A lighter is a profoundly civilian object. You use it to light a cigarette on a quiet street corner, to start a warm candle at a dinner table, to see your way down a dark hallway, not to kill, not to destroy, just to make light. That's what trench art was really about. Physical proof that you were still human. Proof that your hands could still make something beautiful. Proof that you were thinking about a quiet life after the war was over. Some of these soldiers made it home. Many didn't, but the lighters survived them. Thousands of them sit in museums, in private collections, or in dusty attic boxes, passed down through families who eventually forgot what they were. And occasionally one comes up from the roots of a forest, a full century later, still there, still waiting to be found. And this one works. We pack it with fresh cotton, fill it with clear lighter fluid, seal the base. The thumb pulls back the copper cap and spins the hardened steel striker wheel. A harsh snick cuts the air. Sparks hit the soaked wick. The flame catches instantly. It burns steady, yellow, warm, illuminating the dark workshop, exactly as it would have illuminated a freezing French dugout in 1917. exactly as it would have in a muddy German bunker, exactly as it would have in a British rest camp, the exact same fire, the exact same light, the same small act of creation in a place where everything else was being destroyed. If you're fascinated by history like this, the small objects, the things ordinary soldiers made, the artifacts that tell intimate personal stories rather than grand battle statistics, then you're in the right place. This channel is entirely about finding those forgotten objects, restoring them, and understanding what they meant to the people who held them.